Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I wanted to make a video to kind of give you guys an idea of what we ended up learning about solar energizers and the store-bought generic off-the-shelf units that you can get at Tractor Supply and places like that. We did not have the best luck with those units. We wanted solar because we're constantly grazing our animals and moving them from place to place. So solar and full mobility was definitely a key. I know some people will use AC solar chargers and run a solid wire all the way down a fence line or something, but our property being so hilly, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there's hills and ponds and everything going on. It would be very difficult to be able to latch on to that wire. So we wanted full solar, but what we learned through our experience with the store-bought ones is they deliver very little energy. To deliver an appropriate amount of energy, there has to be a battery, a series size battery. So anyway, we did some research and found that the units that you can buy at Tractor Supply are usually around 0.12 to 0.25 joules of stored of energy, which is just simply not enough. When you touch it, even if it's properly grounded, it barely does anything. And once our cows learned that, they became a lot more eager to test the fence and to get out of it. So we decided to build our own solar Energizer cart. Now I'm going to go through the video today and show you guys exactly what we bought, about how much it cost, and how it all goes together. The key components to do this are going to be, you need a preferably 100 amp hour or greater battery. Now I suppose you could go real spendy and buy like a lithium battery, but we just settled with the AGM. The AGM batteries are, the AGM stands for absorbent glass mat. Anyway, you don't really need to know too much about batteries other than the fact that this battery can be on its side, which is very important because it's going to be on its side a lot of times. We bought this Speedrite 3 joule controller. It's 3 joules of output and 4.5 joules of stored energy. This thing hurts. If you hit it, it hurts. The next thing we bought, and I haven't opened this one yet, but this is a 50 watt solar panel from Amazon. I want to say it's around $80, and it comes with the box that charges the battery so it doesn't overcharge your battery. We bought this. It's an Easterner battery box. I think really any battery box that will fit the battery in it would work here. This is going to store the battery, and it's also going to store the solar panel box. And then we're also going to use the top as a mount for the Speedrite Energizer. We bought a wheel dolly. This is obviously, you could do something different here. You probably could just build something, but being that this is already designed, has tires, it can hold the battery, and then you can lay it down flat, which gives the solar panel the maximum amount of access. Now, tools that I suppose will be required, we're going to be, you're going to need a drill and some drill bits. You're going to need some miscellaneous hardware to keep the battery box to the bottom of that, and then also to mount the solar panel. Now the solar panel does not come with any mounts, so what I did is just bought some I don't know what gauge this is. It's looks like it's 1/8 inch by 1 inch, or 1/8 inch by 1 1/4 inch by 4 feet, so it's 1/8 inch steel. And this is going to be what mounts our solar panel. You can get this at Lowe's for like $7 or $8, I think. So we'll drill holes in that. That's going to mount the panel, battery, the Energizer, the battery box, solar panel, and that cart. Now when it's all done, this is going to make a lot more sense. So we'll go ahead and get started putting it all together. Okay, so step one, we're going to mount the battery box to the I don't know what that's called on a wheel dolly, but I guess the dolly part, I don't know. But the thing to keep in mind here is you want there's little recesses in this box, and those are important because the bolts you want the bolts to go through those recesses, because if they don't, then the bolts will be sticking up higher and the battery will be sitting on them. Now, one thing to do before you screw these in is make sure that your top will fit on the box wherever you have it, because if you look, you can't put the box straight up against the wheel dolly. If you do that, then you won't be able to put a top on it. So just make sure that you have that. You can see it's got little areas for the wires to come out. I personally want those to be in the back, so I'd want mine to be somewhat like that. Okay, so that's key. Make sure that you don't try to just put the bottom of the box on and screw it down. If you do that, you will regret it. So now that we know that the box is where we want it, we're going to mount it. Okay, so the first thing I did was I drilled the holes straight through the centers of the bottom of this box. When I left little indentions on the painted surface, so when I take the box off, I can see where I want my holes, right here and here. Now, there's probably a lot more scientific ways to do this, but as Joel Salatin says, you gotta just do stuff. You can't, especially when you're doing this kind of work, if you spend way too much time measuring and counting, it doesn't really matter, and it just wastes time that you could be doing on other productive things. So I'm not saying that measuring stuff is not a good idea, but in this particular case, it doesn't really matter if this thing's perfectly square. So we've got our holes basically where we want them, and now we're gonna zip them down. All right, so now we got our holes through. Now, what I normally do when I go to a place like Atwood's or something is they charge you by the pound, and I just buy a bunch of different sizes of nuts and bolts and whatnot. So I got all different size washers. This whole bag I think cost me like $3 or $4. So if you want my suggestion, it is simply to buy a bag full of hardware, because A, it's always nice to have around. B, always try to buy a common size. Like this is a 1/4 inch hardware. 1/4 inch, I'll label the bag 1/4 inch. I'll put it on the shelf, and then in the future when I need some stuff. I don't know if I got any split washers. Oh, I did, perfect. So those will be good because those will keep it nice and tight. So I got some split washers. I'll put these back, I don't really need those too. Now we're gonna put our box on, okay? We'll go ahead and preload these so that, and I got these big washers to kind of give us some meat on the bone here. There you go, step 1. And then step 2. Perfect. Now we're gonna set this guy on here like so. You can see the screws coming out. All right. Oops, sorry, it's hard to capture and do it sometimes. There we go. So now we got our screws coming out the bottom. We're gonna put our lock bolts on. Our split washers. These are like lock washers is what I always call them, but split washers is the appropriate term. And then we put our nuts on the bottom here. So now you've got, we'll obviously need to tighten this up, but once we have this tight, we got a nice place for the battery to reside on here. So let's go, I gotta get a wrench, we'll tighten it up. Okay, so now the battery box is in, so we're gonna put the battery in. Now, this battery weighs a ton. I don't know what it weighs, but it is incredibly heavy. But as you can see, it fits perfectly in this battery box. This one we got from O'Reilly's. It is 105 amp hour. And it is, I want to say it's around $240. The part number is AGM31DT. This is the same battery we have in our other one. They also give you the hardware, which you will need, so keep that handy. Now the next portion of this is we're going to mount the Energizer to the top of this box here. So that way when this is sitting here, we can have our Energizer here sitting like this. That way it's nice and clean, and also the solar panel will overlap it a little bit, which keeps it probably dry and out of the sun. So let's get that mounted. There's not really a great way to mount this that I have found, but what I did is just shove a screw down through both of these holes and then put the nuts on from the bottom of this lid. So let's get going on that. Okay, so I've got the holes drilled here and here. Now, again, it's not the fanciest way to do it, but what I do is I mark on the outside and then I'll move my bolts in, and then I sat this down. Because like I said, they don't really give you the greatest way to mount it. You just have these. So then what I'm gonna do is have a the bolt sticking through, and then I put a nut in here and tighten it down that way. It's kind of a pain, but it works. So anyway, that's kind of trial and error. But the thing to keep in mind too is that the plug needs to come here, and it's gonna go through the lid. So you can kind of get an idea of the orientation. That's gonna be here, so I need a hole probably somewhere like right here. Now a unibit is probably your best option because the plug looks like this, and it's gonna have to go through the lid. So I'll just drill a hole right here and we'll see how it works. All right, so I got a hole drilled in there, and I've got one of my bolts sticking through. You can see where that's gonna plug in. So I'm gonna take this guy here, go ahead and plug it in, and then we're gonna set this back down on here. Now this is where it gets tricky because, like I said, this is not the best design, in my opinion, for getting this the way I want it. All right, so that's what you want. You have the bolt coming from the bottom, and then it bolts through here. That's the only way I could see to do it. And then if it's hard to see, but the wire comes through the top into there, into that part right there. So this is now this will go on top. Oh, I gotta tuck these in there. These are all gonna be the clamps you use. These come with the Speedrite controller. This is what we got. We got it all tangled up. There we go. So these are gonna go down in the box. Probably tuck the wire down in there somewhere, which way. It's all gonna come back apart before it's said and done, but we're gonna take this. This gives you a visual of kind of what we're going for. So now you got, this is now securely mounted onto the top here. So now what we're gonna do is we need to work on mounting the solar unit. So let's go ahead and we'll open this up, and I'll show you what you got in there and how that works. All right, so for the, whatever it is, $79 or $80, something like that, you get the 50-watt solar panel. You get this PWM 12-volt solar charger controller, which is this guy here. It's got some different functions. I don't use any of which, but it does do a smart charge. You can run a light on it or something. I don't know exactly why you'd want that, but you can do it. It does look like mine's kind of got some weird gooey stuff on top, but anyway, it's supposed to be fully potted. You got these dip switches depending on what you're trying to do. I think it comes pre-configured to charge 12 volt. But anyway, and you have these quick plugs, so then they give you all these connections here. And on this particular setup, we're going to run, let's see here, we want to run, this will go to the battery, and then I think the solar panel itself already has, yep, the wires that connect to it. So it's all pretty nice because you don't have to do any wiring here. So really the big deal here is just mounting it to this. And I'll show you how I did it on the last one. And presumably I'm going to do it the same way on this one. All right, so we know that this piece here is 48 inches. And what we want to do is I want, for the most support, I want to have it laid on this other piece of metal right here, and then we want to bend it around this, and then we'll use it to hold it up on that frame. It'll all make more sense when you see it in just a second. So what we need to do now is figure out exactly where center is, so we can line it up right here, and then we will mark where we need the bends at, and then we'll just put them in a vise and make quick bends on it. Okay, so I got it marked where the bends need to be. Now this is definitely less than scientific, but I know that this end needs to be here. They need to, and then they're going to need to flare up and be about 21 inches apart. So we're going to put it in a vise to start with, and then bend it and kind of measure as we go. But since we do know that these need to be bent in, we're going to go ahead and about 1 inch from the end here, we're going to make bends towards the inside. All right, so I just simply put it in the vise. Being that it's 1/4 inch, you can pretty much bend this by hand and end up with a shape about like this. So then it's about 25 inches or so across right now, which is not what we wanted, but it's I can fold it back around. And then you can see what my plan is I want to mount this right here like so. We'll put bolts coming in, and then we'll put bolts here and here, and then that's going to hold the solar panel between it. So let me get some holes drilled and I'll get a little further in. All right, so once you get the holes drilled, we have 2 holes on the back here and then 2 holes on the front where the actual panel is going to meet. I'd suggest giving her a quick coat of paint because this metal is raw and this thing's going to obviously live outside. So we'll give her a quick once over with some Rust-Oleum. Okay, so now we've got this. It's the solar panel's mounted. Now we just need to run the wiring down to the battery, and then we'll be good to go. But to give you kind of a preview, and granted nothing's permanent yet, but this is a whole lot easier to wheel around than each thing separate. So we're going to let's hook up all the electrical stuff, and then I'm going to strap the top down on it and we'll be ready to roll. All right, I figured I'd go over this too. So really only 2 plugs are going to be used on this. One is going to be the these eyelets, because I'm going to put those directly on the studs on the battery, and then it's going to connect to the one that shows the battery. And then you can see this one shows a solar grid, and this has already got the right plug on it. So I mean, in terms of wiring this controller, it could not be easier. So let's go ahead and get it done. Okay, so now we've got the solar in there. You can see the controller now has its lights on. It's showing that it's got a battery and it's got charged. So that's all good. Now we're going to hook up these 2. This is going to be for the energizer. So of course black goes on negative, red goes on positive. So now we got juice there. So we're going to, this is kind of a part that I don't like about this setup, but I think it'd probably be universal, is you're going to have to tuck the cables down into the box so that it's not just a nightmare inside here. So let's get these tucked in. Once they're all tucked in, you got to have this one, and then this one's coming from the solar panel, so we'll tuck it over on the other side. That's where it's going to come into the box. And then we'll put the top down, and then you got these straps, and this is going to strap the top to the box, and then you're done. All right, and just like that, you've got yourself a fully solar, easy to move 3-joule solar energizer for an electric fence. And then you got these guys as your leads. They're going to connect in there, and then you just we'll roll this down to the fence where the cows are. I didn't tell them that I had taken it, so hopefully they have not tried the fence. And then we will let's plug it in. One other nice thing about having the solar cart hooked up like this is it is towable. So I don't think I'd get on the highway with it, but we can plug it onto the back of our Ranger right here, just like that. And then I'm gonna take her down to the, I'll take her down to the cows real quick. So let's do it. Put it in park. All right, so we're here. Let's see, the solar cart is here too. Probably needed to tilt this up, which it did for me. That's another nice thing, you can tilt it whichever direction you want. But let's go ahead and pick her up off of here. Now if you only knew how heavy all this would be, I think that battery alone is like over 100 pounds. But we're gonna go ahead, set her out here. I've already got a ground rod in because I was already using this fence line before I made the cart. Okay, so now we got her there. Go ahead and turn our deal. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that's what I do. Grab my little clippers here. Boom and boom. Okay. And then one will go to the ground rod, the green one, and then the red one will go to our fence, just like that. Boom, boom. Now let's turn her on, make sure she works. And you can see there the lights on the box. This is it going through its test procedure. Once it completes the test, it will tell you that it is good by having just a green light. Just like that. So now we are fully solar and with a lot of energy to spare. This 50-watt panel is actually more than you would necessarily need, but keeping it all charged up, and that AGM battery has no problem being on its side. So this is all done now, easy to move.